Imagine being able to influence anyone, to have them accept your ideas, follow your suggestions, even change their behavior, without them realizing they're being guided. It sounds like science fiction, but it's real. This ability exists, and few people know how to use it consciously. It's called instant hypnosis, and it has nothing to do with total mind control or stage tricks. Rather, it's about accessing the subconscious in a subtle, almost imperceptible way, yet with profound effectiveness. Great communicators, charismatic leaders, and successful negotiators use these principles every day. And today, you'll learn how to apply them in your own life. But before we continue, type in the comments, "My mind is powerful and influential." By doing so, you're already beginning to reprogram your own mind to absorb this knowledge more deeply. Get ready to discover one of the oldest and most transformative secrets of the human mind. What comes next could change the way you communicate forever. For centuries, hypnosis has been shrouded in mystery, associated with theatrical performances or little understood alternative practices. Yet behind the veil of skepticism, serious scholars of the human mind have investigated this phenomenon with scientific rigor. Among them stands out Jacobo Grinberg, one of the greatest consciousness researchers, who dedicated his life to understanding how the mind shapes reality. For Grinberg, everything we perceive is constructed by mental patterns operating below the level of conscious awareness. He believed that if these patterns could be accessed at the right frequency, the mind could accept external suggestions without resistance, a fundamental principle of hypnosis. Another crucial figure in this field is Milton Erickson, an American psychiatrist considered the father of modern hypnosis. Erickson demonstrated that it's possible to induce trance states with simple words, metaphors, and subtle shifts in language. His methods showed that hypnosis doesn't require closed eyes or authoritarian commands. It occurs every day whenever the subconscious becomes receptive through trust, surprise, or empathy. Today, based on these pillars, you'll understand that hypnotizing someone doesn't require magic, only understanding, technique, and intention. And when this ability is used ethically, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for positive influence. Instant hypnosis is not magic. It doesn't require a pendulum swinging in front of someone's eyes, nor booming authoritarian commands. In fact, it's a natural phenomenon of the human mind, and it happens more often than we imagine. It's the capacity to induce a light, highly receptive trance state, quickly and subtly, accessing the subconscious without the person consciously realizing they're being guided. To grasp why it works, you must understand how the mind operates. The human brain functions through automatic patterns of thought, behavior, and perception. These patterns are mental routines we use to interpret and react to the world effortlessly. A simple example: you've probably driven along a familiar route and, upon arriving, realized you don't remember every turn. That's because your conscious mind shuts off temporarily, letting the subconscious take control, a state akin to hypnotic trance. Instant hypnosis exploits exactly this mechanism. It strategically interrupts a predictable mental pattern, creating a moment of confusion or surprise. That brief lapse, known as the suggestibility window, allows the conscious mind to be bypassed so suggestions can reach the subconscious directly. In that moment, a single sentence, a gesture, or even a subtle change in tone can have a profound impact. One pioneer of this approach was Milton Erickson, who developed conversational hypnosis techniques built on ambiguous language, metaphors, and linguistic patterns that lead the listener into a receptive state without resistance. He showed that by diverting the logical mind's attention and engaging the listener emotionally, one can plant suggestions with extreme effectiveness. Jacobo Grinberg, meanwhile, brought a deeper, more spiritual perspective to the process. In his studies on consciousness and the mind-created reality, he revealed that what we perceive as the external world is actually a projection of our mental framework. According to him, The subconscious doesn't merely absorb information, it literally shapes the reality we live. This means that by accessing and altering subconscious patterns, we can change behaviors, emotions, and even sensory perceptions. Another key factor in instant hypnosis is the speaker's credibility. In ambiguous situations, the human brain looks for external clues to decide how to act. That's why when someone speaks with firmness, authority, and confidence, the other person's mind tends to accept that suggestion as truth. This is the principle of hypnotic leadership, guiding someone's perception with clarity, confidence, and intention. In summary, instant hypnosis works because it interrupts the mind's logical flow, opens the subconscious, and inserts suggestions processed as truths. It doesn't demand absolute control, but rather subtlety, awareness, and skill. Once you understand how this dynamic works, you'll spot opportunities to apply it everywhere, from communication to personal growth. The human mind has two main layers, the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious is logical, analytical, responsible for rational decisions and critique. The subconscious is emotional, symbolic, receptive, and it houses the habits, beliefs, and automatic patterns that shape our actions without us noticing. To truly influence someone, you must reach the subconscious, but there's an obstacle: conscious resistance. This barrier activates whenever someone senses they're being persuaded, judges the information, or feels they're losing control. Therefore, the real secret is to bypass that resistance subtly and naturally. The first strategy to access the subconscious without triggering the conscious guard is pattern interruption. When the mind follows a mental routine, like a greeting, a train of thought, or a repeated habit, it runs on autopilot. If you break that pattern unexpectedly, the mind enters a state of mild confusion. In that instant, conscious vigilance drops and the subconscious becomes accessible. A classic example is Erickson's interrupted handshake. As you start the gesture and then halt it unexpectedly while offering a hypnotic suggestion, the person's mind briefly enters deep receptivity. The second key is using indirect language. Instead of saying "relax now," which can feel like a direct command and spark resistance, you might say, "Many people notice that when they breathe more slowly, the body naturally begins to calm. Perhaps you'll notice that too." This structure, permissive language, ambiguity, generalized examples, isn't perceived as an order, but as an observation. The subconscious, not analyzing logically, accepts the suggestion without objection. Another crucial factor is focused attention. When someone's mind is intensely absorbed by an image, a compelling story, or a physical sensation, it naturally switches off conscious filters. Techniques like storytelling, reflective questions, or inviting someone to imagine a vivid scene help induce that focus. A mind immersed in an experience is an open mind for suggestion. Moreover, using metaphors and mental imagery is a powerful way to bypass the conscious. The brain loves symbols and associations. When you present an idea symbolically, the subconscious interprets it as emotional truth. For instance, instead of saying "you're becoming more confident," you could say, "It's as if a little flame is growing inside you, bringing a light of assurance that expands with every breath." Finally, the most important factor is emotionally clear intention. The subconscious responds to the emotional vibration behind words. If you convey safety, calm, authority, and empathy, the other person picks up on it non-verbally. The suggestion gains power not from what's said, but from the speaker's internal state. Accessing the subconscious isn't about tricking or manipulating. It's about building a bridge of influence based on connection, intention, and mastery of language. And once that bridge is built, transformation can be immediate. Indirect hypnosis is the art of guiding another's subconscious without their awareness. Unlike traditional hypnosis, which may involve explicit commands, indirect hypnosis uses subtle language, metaphors, vocal rhythm, and emotional association. Leaders, salespeople, therapists, and effective communicators use these techniques daily. Next, you'll learn 5 of the most powerful tools to apply this art with elegance and efficacy. First technique, the hypnotic voice. How you speak matters as much as what you say. To induce a receptive state, adopt a slower cadence with strategic pauses and a gentle tone. This shift in rhythm signals the listener's brain that it can relax. For example, you may begin to notice how each breath brings a gentle sense of well-being, where the measured pace fosters a tranquil focus, guiding the mind inward. Second technique, embedded suggestions. Rather than issuing a direct command, you hide the suggestion within a natural sentence. For instance, many people, when they hear this kind of explanation, find themselves feeling lighter, and you might notice that too. The suggestion, feeling lighter, is tucked inside an ordinary phrase, sidestepping conscious resistance and planting the idea deep in the subconscious. Third technique, creative negation, also called negative suggestion. The human mind struggles with direct negations. If I say, "Don't think of a black cat," the image pops up immediately. You can use this to your advantage. Phrases like, "You don't have to relax just yet unless you want to feel that relief naturally," create an indirect suggestion the mind can't ignore. Fourth technique, emotional anchoring. This involves associating a specific emotion with a gesture, word, or touch. For example, if someone is laughing or feeling good, you might lightly touch their shoulder and say, "Hold on to that feeling." Later, when you repeat that same touch and phrase, their mind automatically recalls the anchored emotion. Hypnotists, therapists, and even skilled leaders use this to reinforce positive states in others. Fifth technique, the hypnotic yes or yes set. This strategy guides the person through a series of obvious statements, paving the way for a more significant suggestion. You're listening right now, you can feel the air around you, and you're breathing naturally. These statements are indisputable. Having silently agreed to them, the mind moves into an acceptance rhythm. Then you slip in the suggestion. And as you notice all that, you might also realize how some ideas make even more sense. When applied naturally, these techniques transform how you influence the world around you. Indirect hypnosis isn't about control. It's about deep connection with others and with the essence of effective communication. True influence doesn't happen through shouting, imposition, or a desperate attempt to convince. It manifests subtly, elegantly, almost invisibly, just like indirect hypnosis. When we grasp that everyday communication is essentially a dance between the conscious and the subconscious, we start to see chances to guide thoughts and decisions without ever seeming forced or manipulative. Every conversation exchanges mental states. When you speak with someone, you're not just transmitting words, you're transmitting energy, intention, and most importantly, subtle suggestions that shape their perception. That's why good salespeople, charismatic leaders, and magnetic personalities know how to lead others without confrontation. They apply hypnotic principles invisibly. One pillar of this communication is genuine empathy. Before influencing, connect. Ask questions that draw the person into reflecting on their own experiences, desires, and emotions. When someone feels truly heard, their conscious resistance diminishes, and the channel to the subconscious opens. A question like, "Tell me more about how that made you feel," may seem simple, but it creates a vulnerability where suggestions are more readily accepted. Another powerful resource is unconscious mirroring. When you subtly match someone's posture, tone, or gestures, you trigger an automatic affinity response in their brain. Humans tend to trust and follow those who seem similar. That trust is fertile ground for any emotionally charged suggestion. In everyday conversation, hypnotic techniques appear in ordinary-sounding phrases that are in fact carefully designed. Imagine someone saying, "You might never have thought of it this way, but when you start to reflect, certain things click into place." Here's a gentle opening, a seed planted so softly that the subconscious explores it as if it were self-generated, not externally imposed. It's essential to distinguish between influencing and manipulating. Influencing means guiding someone ethically, respecting their freedom of choice, and seeking mutual benefit. Manipulating means seeking advantage at someone else's expense, ignoring their limits and autonomy. True hypnotic influence arises from noble intention, to help, guide, and serve, not to exploit. Applying hypnosis in daily communication means cultivating the ability to touch another's mind with sensitivity and purpose. It's not theater. It's a new form of presence, fully with the other person, listening with real attention, speaking with clear intent, and using language as a bridge to deep understanding. When this approach becomes part of your communication style, you move beyond mere words. You begin to transform. A well-conducted conversation can heal, liberate, inspire, and even reprogram. And it all happens without the person realizing they've been hypnotized, because in reality, they only felt understood. As effective as indirect hypnosis techniques are, many people fail when trying to apply them. The reason rarely lies in the technique itself, but in how it's used. Even the subtlest hypnosis requires sensitivity, presence, and inner mastery. When these elements are missing, mistakes arise, and with them, loss of influence. Identifying these errors and knowing how to correct them is essential for anyone who truly wants to master this art. The most common mistake is lack of confidence in one's own communication. The other person's subconscious picks up much more than words. It senses hesitations, doubt in your tone, and inconsistent gestures. If you say, "relax," with a shaky voice, the suggestion gets rejected. The subconscious looks for emotional authority. To influence, you must convey security. Security doesn't mean arrogance, it means calm conviction. The solution is to train your voice, posture, and facial expression until your presence communicates clarity and stability. Another frequent error is trying to hypnotize someone who's in the wrong emotional state. If they're agitated, angry, or stressed, their subconscious shuts down in defensive mode. In that condition, suggestions are unlikely to be absorbed. It's like trying to plant seeds in rocky soil. The path is to adjust their emotional state first, redirect their attention. Have you noticed how certain songs can shift our mood in seconds? That creates an emotional opening. A third mistake is using commands that are too direct or out of context. Indirect hypnosis relies on smoothness and gradual guidance. Phrases like, "Now you're completely under my influence," not only trigger resistance, but also sound cartoonish. The subconscious rejects anything forced or exaggerated. The alternative is permissive, progressive language. Perhaps you'll gradually notice that some ideas make more sense than they seemed at first. This reduces the shock and increases acceptance. Many also fail by ignoring the conversation's natural rhythm. Hurried attempts to apply techniques break the connection and sound artificial. Well-executed hypnosis is fluid and imperceptible. The secret lies in active listening, letting the conversation flow, identifying receptive moments, and only then introducing suggestions. Rushing ruins efficacy, presence amplifies impact. Finally, there's the error of not practicing in real situations. Reading, studying, and understanding are essential, but not enough. Indirect hypnosis is a skill, and like any skill, it requires constant practice. Try techniques in simple interactions, observe reactions, and refine your approach. The more you apply them, the more natural they become. And when they become natural, your influence grows exponentially. Avoiding these mistakes isn't just a matter of technique, it's a commitment to excellence in communication. By correcting these flaws, You don't just hypnotize more effectively, you become someone whose presence transforms, whose words touch, and whose intention inspires. Knowing the techniques is only the first step. The true power of subtle hypnosis shows itself when you integrate them into your daily life. That doesn't mean memorizing scripts, but training your presence, language, and perception in ordinary situations, at home, at work, in casual conversations. Practice turns knowledge into skill. The mind learns through repetition and adaptation. The more you consciously apply these techniques, the more your brain forms automatic connections that make them second nature. When you talk to someone, notice how they respond to your tone, pace, and word choice. See where there's openness and where there's resistance. Adjust, refine, experiment. Being persuasively ethical isn't about manipulation. It's about sensitive guidance. Great influencers don't force. They observe, welcome, and lead. Every conversation is a laboratory. Every interaction is a chance to fine-tune your inner instrument. Over time, your presence begins to speak for itself. People sense your energy, your intention, your calm assurance. And that's when you stop using techniques and become the influence itself. Now that you know the secrets of subtle hypnosis, it's time to turn knowledge into practice. True influence doesn't come just from what you know, but from how you apply, observe, and evolve. Each technique you've learned, from the hypnotic voice to embedded suggestions, is a powerful tool that can elevate your communication, improve your relationships, and open previously hidden doors. But remember, with great abilities come great responsibilities. Use this power ethically, respectfully, and purposefully. Influencing isn't manipulating, it's guiding, inspiring, and helping others access their best selves. Start today by choosing one technique and applying it naturally in a conversation. Observe, adjust, grow. If this content helped you see the human mind with fresh eyes, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss the next videos that will deepen your journey into the power of the mind. And before you go, share in the comments, which of these techniques do you most want to practice starting today? Your answer could inspire others to begin the same transformation. The mind is a powerful tool, and now you hold the key to use it wisely.